Sailors have customs, but there's one custom you should never mess around with if you're out at sea. It's known as the delicate question. Once it's asked, there's no turning back. You gotta follow through with it. It's a custom. Let's go back, way back, to February 6th, 1821. On a beautiful sunny day, on a small boat carrying 4 men on it. But you see, these men were not enjoying the beautiful weather that day. They were just staring at one another, looking hardly at each other. And then finally, 18-year-old Owen Coffin would get up and speak up. All 4 men had grew up on the water, on a small island called Nantucket. It was off the Sea of Massachusetts. It was famous for whaling, where you hunted and killed whales for their oils. So all 4 men knew the customs very well. And Owen really wanted to try the delicate question. Ba-dum-pum-pum. The captain of this vessel was George Pollard. He was 28 years old. He was Owen's older cousin, and he had a feeling Owen was going to ask the delicate question. He wanted to stop him, but Owen would burst out and ask the delicate question. Then the men were all in shock. But they all said yes to the delicate question. George wanted to say no, but he went like this. Okay, guys, now that we have a yes answer, Owen would reach down, get the ship's logbook, and go to the back pages where it had some blank pages there, and then rip a sheet out, and then rip that sheet into 3 strips, and then look at Charles, George, and Barzillai, and say, "You guys see this? You guys see this?" And they would reply, "Yes, Owen, we see it. Why are you asking the question twice, man? Go on with your bad self." Then he would rip a smaller piece. So now he has 4 pieces, 3 long ones and 1 shorter one. And then he will pull off his hat and put the sheets inside his hat. Then he will start shaking it, but don't break it. Shaking it, but don't break it. Now it was time to choose a strip. So they all put their hands in the hat and pulled out a strip and put it on their chest like this. And then when they all checked it, Charles had a long one, Barzillai had a long one, and George had a long one. My man Owen had the short one. So then his cousin George would say, "No, let me take that strip." And Owen would say, "Nah, man, nah, I got this." Now that we got that out of the way, Charles would grab the ship's logbook again, go to the back pages, and rip another sheet out. But this time, rip that sheet only into 3 strips. 2 long ones and 1 shorter one. Then take his hat off and put the sheets inside. Then he'll go like this. Barzillai would take a sheet. George would take a sheet. And then Charles would take the last one. Barzillai and George had the long ones. Charles saw that he had the short one, so he threw it. I can't do this. And he went by the side. And George and Barzillai didn't say nothing, they just looked at him. They knew it was custom, and he had to do it. He had no choice. So Charles started crying. "Come on, guys, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't got what it takes. I just can't do it." But they didn't even say nothing. They just kept on looking at him. And then finally, he wiped his eyes, and he went to do it. Now George would grab something long from the bottom of the boat. It was covered in canvas, and hand it to Charles. "Take it, man, take it." And Charles would take it and hold it. And then Owen would come to the men and touch each one's head. "Don't worry, guys. You guys did good. And this was done fairly." Then he would look at the water and go to the end of the boat and get on his knees and look outwards. Now Owen would put his head on the edge of the boat like this, and Charles, holding the big object, would walk right behind of Owen, unwrap the object. It was a rifle, and point it to Owen's head. And Owen expired. There was no more Owen. It was over. Charles started screaming, "Oh my God! What have I done? What have I done?" And George just pulled out a knife and walked to Owen, grabbed his head, and started cutting his head off. Cutting his head off. Then took the head and made it look away from them and sat it there. And then just started cutting Owen up and handing the men pieces of him. Even though on the boat they had space to make a fire, they just couldn't wait. They started eating him like crazy. Alright, let's go back to the beginning of the story. The custom, the delicate question. You see, this question was only ever to be asked if you were ever lost at sea, which they were. I just didn't want to tell you that. I wanted to keep it interesting. The delicate question was to be asked, do we draw to see which one dies so the others could feed on him and survive? It had two parts to it. First, you draw to see who dies. Second, you draw again to see who gets to kill him. You see, on February 6th, 1821, when Owen would ask the delicate question, these men were already lost at sea for 3 months after a whale smashed into their ship and sunk it, and they went adrift. There were other sailors with them on the boat, but eventually died from starvation and exposure, and the other sailors would feed on them. But on February 6th, 1821, there were no one left to eat. So Owen asked the delicate question. 17 days after Owen was killed, a ship would pass by the Essex boat, but they would only find 2 men alive on that boat, Charles and George. Barzillai died from starvation 5 days after Owen was killed, and the men fed on him too. Charles and George were rolled up like this on opposite sides of the boat, chewing on fingers, trying to get every last piece of meat off. They weren't wasting it. They don't throw away food. And when the ship's crew came on board to rescue them, they were terrified. They had become crazy. But after they were fed, relaxed, and cleaned up, they became normal again. This story would be heard all over the world and would inspire Herman Melville to write the classic Moby Dick. I'm Ahmed Bassioni, and I wanted to thank you guys for watching today's video. God bless you. I owe you guys one. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm out of this joint.